So the gay matrix, if you've seen the movie The Matrix, right? What's the whole thing about the matrix? It's imprisonment. The matrix, the gay matrix is an imprisonment. And we are, you are, I am, we are all the prisoners. And it's very difficult to get out of this matrix because it's a psychological matrix. And the properties of this psychological imprisonment are such that nobody knows they're in it. Kind of like when you have a trauma, when you have this internalized homophobia, you don't really know you have it until you go out there, start interacting with people, and it shows up. But right now, people are not really interacting with anybody on a deeper level, so we don't really know what's cooking up in our consciousness. So we're going to use some amazing deeper dives today. I'd like to share with you a lot of knowledge that took me many years to put together. So the reason why we are discussing this is because of all the frustrations and all the struggles that we are going through when it comes to our relationships, hooking up, sex, all the things that are happening in our community. There's a lot of disorganization, there's a lot of chaos, there's a lot of frustration. So here you see that we have 4 parts of our consciousness. There's the spiritual, mental, emotional, and sexual. I covered this in many other videos. Basically, there are 4 parts to us. We're not sexual beings. So please don't define yourself that way. I know in the gay population, it goes around this statement that you're a sexual being and therefore you have to have everything adjusted towards sex. That is a lie. In fact, this is the biggest lie that gay men tell themselves, that they are sexual beings. You're absolutely not a sexual being. The reality is that you are a multidimensional being that has a spirit, mind, emotions, and sex. You have to awaken all of that, and you have to experience relationships that embody all of that, not just the sexuality. But because of shame and trauma, okay, everything is reduced. So shame, it's taking something that's wholesome and turning it into a compartment. So here we have a wholesome being that's now turning to sex. So this miniaturization, turning people into sex, this is what shame does, and all of us are doing it to one another because we are stuck in this quicksand, like I mentioned a moment ago. So this is kind of like our default mechanism, compensatory force, that we have difficulty coming together on an emotional level, mental level, spiritual level, because we don't know how to do it. So the only way we can do it is through sex and sexual compatibility and all of the pitfalls that come with that, which is the polarity consciousness that I talked about in previous videos. But here's what happens. Once you define yourself as a sex object, which is when you claim that you're a sexual being, you turn yourself into a sex object. What will happen is that you're going to start looking at the world through that, and you're going to create a false self. That's what's going to happen. You're going to say to yourself, oh, because I'm a sexual being, therefore I have to have a sexual partner that is sexually compatible, that has to be a total top. And you have to have this whole narrative about how sex is going to dominate your life, that it's the end all, and that's how you're going to be happy, and every problem you have will be solved when you find your total 10 top guy. And that is the false self. Nothing will be solved through sex. I'm just going to, tell you right now. No problem will go away. There will be no magic, no happiness when you're going to find your sexual compatible lover. That's the false self. Studying narcissism is really helpful in this case because this is exactly the same thing that's happening with narcissists. It's just a different way. And here, it's not permanent. With narcissists, it's permanent. Here, we're talking about conditioned narcissism. So this false self is basically like this red square that's within this square. This is kind of like a 3D cube. And the false self is like pushed back. So you're not at the front facing your life, you're at the back. You're reacting through that false self, because this false self is not a very strong kind of persona. This is a creation of your mind, this false self, through sex. And you believe that this is like, you're going to be powerful, empowered, everything's going to be great, happiness, fulfillment, all the great things you always fantasize about. But none of that will be happening because this false self is weak. It's not empowered by emotion, mind, and spirituality. And so everything that's going to happen through it will be a failure all the time. I know this sounds kind of crazy, but if you operate through something that's not your false self, Basically, you think you're coming out, but as opposed to coming out gay, you coming out into another pit, another quicksand, another kind of closeted way of being, because previously you were false self lying about being straight. Now you're false self lying that you're a sex object, that you're a sexual being. You see where this is going? It's like no matter what you do, you're still stuck closeted, just slightly differently. So the false self here is the you without emotions, mind, and the spirit, just the sexual you. And this is what you sell basically to all the gay guys on Grindr, hookup apps, Graph, Growler, and all the Tinders and everything else. This is how you project yourself onto everybody else. But if we can get more specific here, it's going to blow your mind, because this will produce all kinds of other false perceptions of the world. You're going to start believing and looking up to false authority figures. Starting from this, you're going to automatically start believing that they are the people that are good for you. But all they're doing is just validating your false self. That's all they're doing. So you're going to have false authority figures. You're going to have false gods. And those of you who don't believe in God, you're still going to have a substitute for God. So if you're not going to have the God like the Christian God or the Buddhist or whatever tradition you come from, if you're not going to have that, you're going to invent a sexual God. And in most cases for gay men, their gods will be the guys with the bigger penises and the masculine features, the bad boy kind of man. There will be their gods. So if you start from here, you're going to have false authority figures. You're going to listen to all the wrong people. You're going to have these false ideals, these gods. And you're going to have these false attachments as a result of that. So attachments are going to be the material things, the things that are really surface level. You're going to start buying purses and you're going to start buying all these clothes that are super expensive, but they're completely meaningless. You're going to start spending money on completely ridiculous things, and these will be your attachments. And it's not just spending money. This could be movies that you watch, books that you read, hobbies that you have, playing games on the computer all the time, wasting your life away. If you start from here, all of these things will be false perceptions of reality. So authority figures, gods, attachments. You are not going to be in touch with your true needs, because your needs will be purely sexual. So you're going to have these false needs dominating the actual needs. But I want to stop here because I want to tell you what that will turn into. Okay, let me find this here. Okay. So once you have your false needs, you're going to enter into shadow sexuality, because you're going to have those other needs that are unmet. The emotional needs will be unmet if you lead with sex. Your spiritual needs will be unmet. You'll be lost existentially. And these unmet needs are going to be creating this emptiness inside you. And you're going to do what? You're going to use sex. More sex. But more sex means more unmet needs. And this cycle will continue. You're going to be super angry. And you're going to have a lot of shame. This anger is going to fuel it. So the anger that is happening for all of us, there's a lot of anger in the community. And this anger is there because people have unmet needs. And that anger will then almost like force the shame down our throats. Because that shame is what's going to make sex possible. If you hang out on Grindr and hooking up through sex, if this is your reality, this false self is your reality, you're not growing, you're dying. You're only growing in terms of how much sex you have, but that's not even growth. That's just pure hedonism. It's like eating candy. It doesn't make you better. It just destroys your teeth. And all this sex, it's going to make you infantile with emotions, with your mind, or with the spirit. And then you're going to have false hope. They're still waiting for the top guy. They've been single for 10 years. They're still waiting on the bench. I have this visualization of this skeleton sitting on the bench. They're still waiting. They're still hoping. It's false hope because of how they condition themselves to look through this false self. And the whole life is about false authority, false gods, false attachments, false needs, and false hope. So what's going to happen is this triangle symbolizes this cycle of trauma. So shame, this is the miniaturization to sex. I just described to you the false reality, the false hope, the false gods, all the false things, the false self, the narcissistic self, the conditioned narcissism. trauma is going to be there every day, because out of that, healthy people, when they enter your life, you're going to reject them because they don't want to be reduced to genitals. They don't want to be turned into a sex object like you turned yourself into. So you're always going to have trauma with them. They'll always reject you. They'll always ghost you. And of course, you're going to have that just by the virtue of hanging out with other people that are traumatized and that are ashamed. And arousal will be the only way out of this, that you're going to say to yourself as a compensatory force, because this is the kind of pleasure. This is the only pleasurable thing out of this cycle. So you're going to be gravitating towards that. But you're going to be stuck in this triangle, and that will lead to this 4D kind of experience of detachment, delusion, dissociation, and denial. The denial, delusion, dissociation, detachment is that it's kind of like this perfect mirror. It's like, okay, denial. Am I in denial today? Detachment. I'm kind of detached. Mirror, mirror on the wall, tell me the truth. Am I detached? Am I in a state of trauma? Yeah, I'm detached. Gosh, I gotta meditate. I gotta go into the woods, into the mountains to find my true self. Mirror, mirror on the wall, tell me, am I dissociated because of sexual shadow and the trauma and the abuse? I also operate on the same level that we all operate. I enter into a state of denial, detachment, but this framework helped me come out of it and actually call it out. And I was journaling and I say, am I in denial today? Am I in a state of detachment from the real reality? Am I playing games with myself? And the answer was yes. I was pretending. Yes. So this framework helped me come out of this general matrix, not just the gay matrix, but the general matrix. But this framework is in your face. This framework forces you to face your possibility of a state of denial. And that's why I love it. And I want to apply it to this. So this sex, the fact that you determine I'm a sex object, I need to get fucked all the time. I mean, that's a delusion. And so then we ask, okay, denial. What is about the denial? You're denying yourself, your emotional self. You're denying yourself, your spiritual self, and your mind. You're denying yourself the experience with other gay men that involve this beautiful multidimensionality of all parts of you. Instead, you reduce yourself to sex. Okay? So delusion, denial, dissociation. Dissociation is a little bit more complicated because it's an outcome of trauma. You're kind of like rattled. Because you will be rattled. This false self is going to rattle you. You're going to be stuck in a quicksand. This is the quicksand. You're going to be shaking. And when you're going to be shaking, you're going to be like, who can pull me out of this quicksand? You're going to be like, oh, yeah, this guy is going to pull me out with his dick. And you're like, you're going to be anchoring, hoping and clenching and seeking someone to pull you out of this quicksand. And you're going to use sex as your default mechanism. So this dissociation is the dissociation as a result of the hurt and the pain that's going on in your life that you have not taken responsibility for. Or maybe even you're not aware that that pain is inside you. And you are dissociating from feeling that pain. But because that pain is energy, that energy still is inside you, whether you are aware of it or not. And that shaking that you're feeling, that anxiety and depression that you're feeling, it's all because that energy is trapped inside you and you dissociated from it and compensating in the wrong way by doing something that actually makes it worse. So we talked about delusion. Hey, it kind of like looks like a delusion here. Denial, you're denying these three things. You're denying that to yourself. So dissociation is the outcome of trauma, hurt, and pain. You dissociate from your pain. And detachment is you basically, I don't care, fuck it. Fuck it, I'm going to be lonely forever. I'm okay. I'm going to be playing computer games, going to the movies alone and watching Netflix. I don't care. That's the detachment, the indifference. You stop caring. You stop recognizing that there are bigger things out there, more beautiful things out there. You don't even see them. It's like you have this tunnel vision You only see this direction or this direction because you detached from everything else because it's so painful. It's so frustrating. It's so chaotic and it hurts, and you've lost hope because you operate on the basis of this false hope. Everything has been false. False hope, false needs, false attachments, false gods, false authority. You're like, what the hell is going on with my life? Everything is not working. Everything is fucked up. Everybody's using me. Everybody's going away. Everybody doesn't care about me. And so, of course, this gay matrix will turn a lot of people suicidal, will turn a lot of people, just twist them inside and out and make them feel like life is not worth living, like nothing good is going to ever happen to them. Everything is pessimistic, negative, and bad. The world will end. And you actually want everybody's lives to end as the world ends, because if you're suffering so much, why should other people be happy? You see? These are very deep negative states of mind that we enter into as a result of this trickling year by year and the deepening of this false self, the creation of the false self, the conditioned narcissistic self that is not real. It comes out of the most reductionary part of you, the one part of you that doesn't require the mind, the emotions, or the spirit, and that's your genitals. You don't have to be emotionally in touch with yourself. You don't have to be intellectually curious about yourself or spiritually inclined. You just have a heart-on. You just have to have your genitals. And that's all that becomes the transaction between men. And this is what shame and trauma does to all of us. And this is the gay matrix. So to step out of this gay matrix, you have to look at it seriously. You have to acknowledge the pain that you're feeling, and you have to take responsibility. And that's difficult. It took me a long time. So I'm not expecting you're going to do it tomorrow. I'm not expecting you to do it now. I want you just to reflect on all of this in a very kind of chill way. Kind of like I'm chilling right now. And having some coffee with you. I don't want to make this too clinical, but I want you to take this seriously because this is some serious shit here. Serious stuff that very few people understand. Very few people have the courage to call out, because everybody out there, all these gay guys out there, everybody is reduced to sex. Even the coaches, even the therapists, they're all, yeah, find your lover, and if he's not sexually compatible, dump him. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? So that's why this is perpetuated forever. And we've got this polarity consciousness, the devaluation or idealization, the inability to understand differences, the difficulty processing the differences about other people, assuming that those differences are real. Yet most of us don't really know each other when we meet each other because we only spend a small fraction of time together. So none of the people that you rejected, you actually knew who they were. You only saw the facade, their body, their penises may be too small, or they were bottoms and you rejected them. But if you got to know them, you would have realized that some of them are beautiful people. Amazing people that can create a lot of joy and happiness for you, but you reject them. Take responsibility for your pain, for your hurt, for your minimization that you're doing to yourself. Educate yourself about what it means to be a human, that we have to lead with emotion. Emotion is the most important thing for us in the context of personal development, because everything is about emotions, for men, for women, for everybody. We have emotions inside us that we don't even feel, but they're there. And then we have those emotions that we feel all the time, the anger, the depression, the anxieties, the sadness, the disappointments, the betrayals, the disconnection. Worry about everything because you're not operating on all of your cylinders. Things will be falling apart. You won't be able to understand why, because you are operating out of the false self. This gives you power. And that's what people forget about. When you reduce yourself to genitals, you're giving up so much power. Oh my gosh. You're basically killing yourself slowly. That's what you're doing. And the fear that comes out of this is always going to be there. In fact, you always know when you study narcissism, people that are narcissists, they're afraid. They operate out of this fear-based consciousness. And they can't do it any other way because they've never internalized the spiritual, the higher self. And they operate out of the most shallow self. They operate out of the false self that gives birth to this perpetual fear. And that's why they compensate with charisma. They compensate with all the flashy stuff and with the clothes, with the cars, with the money. But underneath it is a deep, deep level of insecurity. And this is exactly the same thing that's happening to gay men that are conditioned by this false self. The fear is dominating your life. So how do we come out of this gay matrix? The way to come out of this is, like I said a moment ago, to take responsibility for all of the miniaturization and the shame and the trauma you're doing to yourself. Sex, you can always get it. It's super easy. But emotional connections, spiritual connections, intellectual connections, that is very rare. And that is the standard for the Big Gay Family Social Program, so that you step out of the false self into your real, genuine self, the highest self that comprises your emotional self, your spiritual self, your intelligence, and yes, your body and sex, as it is integrated into it, an extension of it, not the priority, not the first lens that you look at the world through, but the fourth one, after emotions, after your intellect and your spirituality. So the answer is not that complicated, but it's this tolerating of abuse and toxicity that has to stop immediately. That is something you have to do ASAP, because the longer you tolerate that, the longer the journey of reclaiming the responsibility for your pain, then feeling your pain, then healing your pain, and then restoring empowerment, and then awakening the higher version of you and bring into your life wholesome, loving men. And you'll see the journey of transformation will be fast and will be beautiful. Okay, my friends, I'll be signing off. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Ciao for now. Bye.